What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Happy that you guys have taken time out your day to join me on this wonderful Thursday afternoon. We got a really exciting episode, man. Like I keep saying this every episode, but I really do be excited for every new episode that we do, man. Like I tell you guys, I'm a creature of habit. I love coming on here and doing this. Like if I don't do this once a day, my day isn't complete. But on today's episode, we're going to be discussing how the Patriots have regressed under Bill Belichick, man. Like, I know y'all been hearing the Andy Reid versus Bill Belichick debates, who's the greatest head coach of all time, but we got to discuss how the Patriots have fallen off ever since Tom Brady left Foxborough, man. How good does Aaron Rodgers need to be for the New York Jets, man? Because everybody in the media keeps saying, the New York Jets, like, they might not be that good. It's like people are 50-50 on the Jets this year. It's like you either believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to come in and be that dude that he was prior to last season and get them to the playoffs and potentially make a Super Bowl run, or you fall on the other 50% that thinks that this thing is going to crash and burn and it's going to look really ugly. Then the Houston Texans. Now, when I had them on my top 10 defenses a couple of days ago, there were some people that were flipping out in the comment section. The Texans, I had the Texans as having a top 10 defense this year. What about it? So I'm going to dive deeper into why I believe the Houston Texans are going to have a top 10 defense. And I'm going to give you guys my keys to what the Pittsburgh Steelers need to do this year to have a successful season. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just available on YouTube. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Leave us with a 5-star review if you enjoyed the episode. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the season begins. So make sure to go give us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast and it will pop up. Or you can go to the description down below, scroll down a little bit, and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. You know, ever since Tom Brady left Foxborough, things have not been the same for the New England Patriots, man. And you remember when we used to have these long, drawn-out debates about who was more responsible to the Patriots being the dynasty that they were, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? And ever since Tom Brady has left New England, he gave them the deuces. This franchise has not looked the same. And I think it's pretty fair to say that we finally have the answer to who was more responsible to the Patriots' success during the glory days, and it has to be Tom Brady. I mean, he leaves New England and wins another Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his first season being there, by the way. And then you look at New England, I don't think they've been as bad as what many people in the media keep saying they are. Like, people keep saying, making it seem like ever since Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick hasn't been a great head coach and the New England Patriots have been one of the worst teams in the NFL. Now, people aren't saying that exactly, but that's what they trying to make the Patriots look like. Like, yeah, during, Tom Brady's first season not being there, they didn't make it to the playoffs, but it's not like they weren't a good team that year. They were a really competitive football team. Y'all remember they had Cam Newton that season, and before Cam Newton had to miss a couple of games due to COVID, he was going off. He was looking pretty good, had a pretty good game against the Seattle Seahawks. Y'all remember how that game came down? It literally came down to a goal line stand. Like, Cam Newton was playing at a pretty high level, and a lot of people questioned if the Cam Newton thing was even going to work out. Now, ultimately, in the end, it didn't really work out, but the Patriots were pretty good for the first half of that season. Even when they didn't have Cam Newton, they were pretty competitive. So it's like, I don't really hold that season against Bill Belichick. Like, they didn't really have a lot of money to spend for agency. So it may seem like I'm making excuses, but I'm not really making excuses. Like, yeah, they didn't have a phenomenal season, but at least they were able to be somewhat competitive that year without having, a lot of talent around Cam Newton and a really talented roster. So what do they do the following season? Well, they spent a lot of money in free agency. They bring in John O. Smith and Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. They made some really good free agency acquisitions that offseason. But ultimately, when the season rolls around, we end up getting surprised when Mac Jones ends up dethroning Cam Newton, fam. Like, he dethroned Cam Newton right before training camp began. That's how good Mac Jones was going into his rookie season with New England. Like, y'all keep making this seem like Mac Jones is a bum. Like, this dude was the best rookie quarterback his rookie year, man. Like, who would have thought that Mac Jones would have had a better rookie season than Trevor Lawrence? Come on, man. Like, everybody thought that Trevor Lawrence was going to come out and shine, man. Like, and he comes out and doesn't look good under Urban Meyer. So you look at Mac Jones, like, it seems like we just, forget about Mac Jones' rookie season like he wasn't a good quarterback his rookie year. But, okay, New England makes it to the postseason. Yeah, they get dominated by the Buffalo Bills, but they still made it to the playoffs. And then you look at last year. Last year was a complete disaster. And a large reason why is because Bill Belichick runs his operation like it's OTF, the family rap group that Lil Durk is the head of. That's kind of how Bill Belichick runs the New England Patriots, man. Like, he never goes outside the organization and really brings in anybody new. So when Josh McDaniels left, this dude ends up replacing him with Matt Patricia. And that's where I believe things start to hit the fan and go left for the New England Patriots. After Matt Patricia replaced Josh McDaniels with Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator, that's when the New England Patriots started to regress, because that was a boneheaded decision. Like, why would you make a defensive coordinator who's never called plays before, by the way, your offensive coordinator? That makes no sense to me. That was one of the dumbest decisions that I've seen in all my years watching football, and you don't expect that from a head coach of Bill Belichick's caliber. This dude is one of the greatest head coaches, if not the greatest head coach that ever coached this game. And he makes a crazy decision to make Matt Patricia his offensive coordinator, man. Yeah, that offense deserved to be bad last year. And then Mac Jones, Mac Jones has a little bit of personality in him. Like, you just not finna just do anything that Mac Jones doesn't agree with, and when it not work out, him not saying anything. So, of course, we saw him and Matt Patricia getting into it on the sideline, but can you blame him? I mean, Matt Patricia did not know what he was doing. The only good thing about the New England Patriots offense last year was the fact that Ramondre Stevenson was carrying a lot of people's fantasy football squads last year. So shout out to Matt Patricia for that. At least he put Ramondre Stevenson in the offense that let him broke out last year. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson was going on, but outside of that, there was nothing good about New England's offense last season. So the Patriots, where did they start to fall off? When Bill Belichick made that awful decision to make Matt Patricia his OC. And then let's not even get into the fact that, okay, you bring in Devontae Parker, you trade for him. Anytime a team in your division is willing to get you a player, 9 times out of 10, that player is not going to be good, man. Unless you just got an instance where a team just has nobody else to ship him off to, like how Brad Holmes gave TJ Hawkinson to the Minnesota Vikings. But other than that, like, we knew TJ Hawkinson was a good player. But outside of the TJ Hawkinson trade, when's the last time you saw a team trade another player on their roster to a team inside the division that was actually good, man? Like Devontae Parker, he's okay. I mean, he ain't awful. He ain't great. He's a really good 50-50 ball wide receiver. But the problem with the Devontae Parker is the fact that every pass you throw to him is a 50-50 ball. So Mac Jones last season was just dropping back and saying, F it, Devontae Parker somewhere down there. And it was costing him because he kept on turning the football over, man. So you got the fact that Bill Belichick is just inept at being able to assemble elite talent, at least when it comes to the skill position at the wide receiver position. And it's crazy because this was the same dude who traded for Wells Walker, and Wells Walker became the greatest slot receiver of all time. This is the dude who utilized that 2 tight end system with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. Don't get mad at me for saying his name, but let's not act like they wasn't going off that year they went to the Super Bowl against the New York Giants. So, I mean, Bill Belichick, I don't know when this dude became blind to trying to find elite talent on offense. But outside of being able to, scope out good offensive linemen, this dude does not know how to build a winning championship caliber offense. And even an offense that capable of being able to make it to the postseason, man. Like, they're right here on their knees pretty much begging for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen Bill Belichick in a situation where there's some legitimate pressure that he may lose his job. Like, this man's out here pretty much waiting for what's his name, DeAndre Hopkins, to sign with them, man. If DeAndre Hopkins doesn't sign with the New England Patriots, it's not going to look good this year, even though we do have a lot of hope in Bill O'Brien, and I think that he deserves the benefit of a doubt. Like, the dude's not a bad offensive coordinator. He's a really good offensive coordinator, just not head coach material. But you look at him calling the plays this season, he's going to be an upgrade from Matt Patricia, who was awful. He was the worst play caller in the league. So if you look at how Bill O'Brien has run his offenses in the past, it's normally been predicated on the run. So maybe he can get this offense going, but when you look at this division, man, they're going against some of the best defenses in the NFL. The New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins with Vic Fangio, and then you're also going to have to worry about the Buffalo Bills defense. Like this offense without DeAndre Hopkins, they're not going to have a shot at being able to have success offensively in this division. Like, the defenses are just too doggone tough, man. Just too tough. So you look at how the Patriots have fallen off. I really think him making Matt Patricia his OC is where we started to see things hit the fan. And the fact that he doesn't have an eye for finding talent at the wide receiver position in the early rounds of the draft is another big reason why the Patriots are starting to fall off, man. Like, you know what they say, it's a passing league, and you need to have receivers to win in this league. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and then the 49ers had Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. The Bengals had T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd. And the Kansas City Chiefs had Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. So unless you got an elite offensive mind that's your OC, you're not going to go far if you don't have a good group of wide receivers, man. This ain't the old NFL where you could win with what the Ravens used to win with. You got to go out there and you got to get some elite playmakers on the outside for your QB. And the Patriots have not done a good job of doing that for Mac Jones. Like, Kendrick Bourne is okay, and Devontae Parker is okay, but that's the problem. They got too many okay players on this offense, man. Outside of Ramondre Stevenson, they don't have a dog on the outside who can just go get it, man. Like Joe Burrow, you throw that thing up to what's his name, man? Jamar Chase. You throw that thing up to Jamar Chase, he finna go get it. Same thing with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You need that, and Mac Jones doesn't have that. You saw Stephon Diggs for Josh Allen in the Bills offense when they traded for him from Minnesota. They need a young elite receiver for Mac Jones. And if you can't find a young elite receiver, go out there and get him an experienced veteran. You know what you're getting out of DeAndre Hopkins? Come on, man. This dude ain't no bum. But you look at the Patriots regression, man. At the end of the day, to sum this all up, the fact that he made an awful decision to make Matt Patricia his offensive coordinator, and the fact that he doesn't have an eye for finding elite playmakers on offense over the last couple of years, these are the reasons why the Patriots are in regression right now. The defense is still good. I don't really think the defense has been an issue. Like, you know, the Patriots are always going to have a really good defense, but it's just that Bill Belichick's offenses have not been good. You see why Tom Brady had to get out of there, man. Imagine Tom Brady throwing to Nelson Aguilar. That's crazy. So let me know what you guys think are some of the reasons for why the New England Patriots have regressed under Bill Belichick's watch ever since Tom Brady left Foxborough. Aaron Rodgers, we seem to forget, not just too long ago, was a back-to-back MVP winner. And now you got some people questioning if Aaron Rodgers is even going to be good this year. Like, that is beyond crazy to me. Yes, I know last year was a down year for him, but he was bringing in new receivers, young receivers at that. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson were the Packers' two best receivers, and they were rookies, and both those guys ended up missing time with injury, so he could never get into a good rhythm when those guys were healthy and when they were on the field. And plus, the New York Jets have a way better roster overall than anything that the Green Bay Packers have had in the last couple of years. Like, they don't need Aaron Rodgers to be the MVP player that he used to be. Now, if they end up getting that, I know they would love that. I'm pretty sure they're hoping that that happens. But if that doesn't happen and they get an Aaron Rodgers that's a top 12, top 13 level QB, I think that's good enough for them to have a shot at being able to win the Super Bowl. Because yeah, Aaron Rodgers want to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but they don't need him to be with the talent that they have around them. You got Garrett Wilson, who was the best rookie wide receiver in the league. You also signed Alan Lazard, who Aaron Rodgers has a lot of familiarity with. Your offensive line is going to be a lot better than what people are giving credit for, man. Like, they got Joe Tippmann, a rookie center out of Wisconsin in the second round. That dude is a bulldozer. He's probably going to end up being the best center that the New York Jets have had since Nick Mangold. And then you got Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton is a bust, not because he can't play, but because the dude can't stay healthy and he can't stay on the field. But when he is able to be healthy, he's really good. And you look at the fact that at your offensive guard positions, you got Laken Tomlinson, you got Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, I don't know why people keep saying the New York Jets have a bad offensive line, making it seem like the offensive line isn't, a pretty big issue. Like, the offensive line is not an issue. They got a really good offensive line. Now, I think that a lot of people are not giving this defense enough attention. Like, y'all make it seem like Aaron Rodgers has to carry the New York Jets on his back. Like, he does not need to carry this franchise on his back. As a matter of fact, all he needs to do is be better than Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco. Who else they don't have at QB? Sam Darnold. I mean, these boys also have Ryan Fitzpatrick. The last time the New York Jets got competent quarterback play was that season that Ryan Fitzpatrick went off and the New York Jets gave him that extension after. Ever since then, they have not had good QB play. And then if you want to go back even further, Mark Sanchez. When Mark Sanchez and the Jets went to those back-to-back AFC Conference Championship games, he was pretty serviceable. And even then, like, the New York Jets still weren't able to get it done. So the New York Jets have a great defense. This defense carried this team all last season. Like, this offense did this defense no justice. And every time this defense was asked to step up against some of the best offenses in the NFL, they delivered. You see how they play against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. So this is a top 3 defense going into this year. And with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, you know you're going to get better quarterback play from what you have gotten from that position the last couple of years. So Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to be a superstar. He doesn't need to be an MVP candidate. He just needs to be better than what you have had at that position for the last decade, man. And that's not really a low bar that he has to exceed. Yeah, I get the fact that, well, JT, he's in the division with Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa. It's like, okay, but I mean, I love Tua, but come on, man. Like, I still would take Aaron Rodgers over Tua Tagovailoa. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to be a great QB for the Jets to have success. All he needs to do is be a serviceable QB. And I think that the New York Jets can get that. Now, I don't think he's going to be a middle-of-the-pack QB. I do think he's going to be above average. I think he's going to be a top 12 QB this year. And the New York Jets can win with that because of how good this defense is and how good their supporting cast is around Aaron Rodgers. It's not like this dude is going to an organization where he has to learn a completely new system. Like, him and Nathaniel Hackett already have a lot of familiarity when they were with each other in Green Bay. So it's not like he's learning an entirely new system. Like, he has a pretty good amount of familiarity with Nathaniel Hackett's system. Nathaniel Hackett didn't work out with the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson, but Aaron Rodgers is going to make Nathaniel Hackett look good as a play caller. So I'm not really worried about the play calling from Nathaniel Hackett. You got to remember, like, Peyton Manning, one of his offensive coordinators during his time at Denver, I believe, was Adam Gase. So if you got a good QB that's serviceable, he's going to make the guy calling the plays look good for you. Look at Tom Brady under Byron Leftwich. And then once Tom Brady retired, you saw they got rid of Byron Leftwich, even though I believe it was a scapegoat move. But if you got a solid quarterback like Aaron Rodgers at the helm, he's going to make the play caller look better than what he was. Because with Aaron Rodgers, it's just not like you're going to call the plays and make Aaron Rodgers play in a certain structure. Like, Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers already have a good understanding with what both of each other are expecting from one another. So it's like Aaron Rodgers is going to be allowed to freestyle. He's going to be able to call audibles, adjust the protections and all that. So it's not like Aaron Rodgers is going to a situation where he has to learn a new system over again, a new playbook. Now, I get the concerns that people have about Aaron Rodgers getting along with his teammates. But Aaron Rodgers has taken those young receivers under his wing, and they've grown and really gravitated towards him. And I really think that the depiction that the national media tries to paint of Aaron Rodgers isn't really true. I just think that Aaron Rodgers is just one of those people that beats to his own drum. And, you know, with Aaron Rodgers, he's also one of those type people who likes to stick it to the media. He loves proving people wrong. He gets a lot of satisfaction from proving people wrong. And when the New York Jets end up being good this year, he's going to come on those national talk shows like the Pat McAfee show and, you know, make jokes about it, how people try to make it seem like he was just a weird hippie introvert that doesn't really know how to, you know, communicate and react around people. Like, people love Aaron Rodgers, man. There's not too many teammates that have bad things to say about Aaron Rodgers. So for when Aaron Rodgers plays this year, I think that he's going to end up being good enough for the Jets to make it to the playoffs and make a little bit of a playoff run. And if I had to give you guys my top 3 teams in the AFC this year who I believe can challenge Kansas City, I'm going to go with the Bengals, the Ravens, and the New York Jets. The New York Jets defense is phenomenal. We keep talking about how good does Aaron Rodgers need to be. I mean, he doesn't have to be too good, because their defense is not going to be allowing too many teams to score more than 18, 19 points a game. So all they got to do is score 21 a game, and they should be winning the majority of the games that they play. Like, we keep making a lot of fuss about their early season slate, but I mean, they got a great defense that can shut down some of those better quarterbacks that they play. So I think that Aaron Rodgers just needs to be a top 12 quarterback, be above average this season, and the New York Jets should be a playoff team, and they potentially could make a Super Bowl run. I mean, do you remember Peyton Manning's final season in the NFL with the Denver Broncos? He was not good. That was the worst season of Peyton Manning's career, and this season was worse than his rookie season with the Indianapolis Colts when he threw 28 interceptions that season. And the Denver Broncos still won the Super Bowl with that. You want to know why? Because Peyton Manning was good in the key moments. So if the Denver Broncos can win the Super Bowl with how Peyton Manning played his final season in 2015, I'm pretty sure the New York Jets can do that in a similar way. Like, yeah, some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, majority of them play in the AFC, but there's not too many defenses in this conference that are as good as what the New York Jets defense is. The 2 best defenses in the NFL last season were the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. You want to know who was behind them at number 3? The New York Jets, fam. So the New York Jets defense isn't being talked about enough. This is a defense that's not going to allow a lot of points to be scored on them. No matter who they play at QB, who they're going to be lining up against, this defense is still going to show up and show out. So unless this defense just falls off the cliff and this defense just isn't good, I don't think that the New York Jets are going to end up missing the playoffs. I at least think this should be a playoff team with Aaron Rodgers on it. And I think the best case scenario, they win the whole thing. They go to the Super Bowl and they win it. You saw what Tom Brady did when everybody said that he wasn't going to be able to do it. The same thing that y'all are using against Aaron Rodgers. He got new teammates. How long is it going to take for him to get adjusted to him and whatnot? And you saw Tom Brady, his first season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, they had some ups and downs throughout that year, but they still were able to put it all together to win the Super Bowl. So why can't Aaron Rodgers do the same thing? This offensive line is not that bad. They got a great defense, and they got a great supporting cast around Aaron Rodgers for him to be successful. This is the same situation that Tom Brady was in his first year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you guys let me know down in the comment section how good you guys think the New York Jets need Aaron Rodgers to be this season. Now, I got a lot of people who were really mad at me when I had the Houston Texans ranked inside my top 10 defenses for this year, man. And for all you people that were saying, man, JT, why do you got the Texans on here, man? Like, the reason why I got the Texans on there is because they're going to have probably the second best young defense in the NFL this season, right behind the Seattle Seahawks. Like, just be honest, unless you're a Texans fan, a lot of you guys were not watching the Houston Texans last year, because if I ask you who Jalen Petrie is, most of you guys are not going to know who he was, and he was probably the best rookie safety in the NFL last year. He led the Houston Texans in tackles and interceptions as a safety. A lot of you guys know who Jaquan Brisker is because most people were tuning in to the Chicago Bears playing last season for Justin Fields. But if you really watched the Houston Texans defense last year, there's no way you should not know who Jalen Petrie is. You give DeMeco Ryans a Jalen Petrie, fam? Jalen Petrie is probably going to be an all-pro this year. And then they signed Jimmy Ward. So they have one of the best safety duos in the NFL this year. And you look at Derek Stingley, like I know Derek Stingley got drafted high, and we kind of forgot about him, but the reason why we forgot about him was because of who his head coach was, Lovie Smith, and Lovie Smith held back Derek Stingley. Like, Lovie Smith put Derek Stingley, one of the most talented cornerbacks to come out in recent memory, in a system that kind of brought down his strengths and what he did well. So you got DeMeco Ryans, somebody who knows what he's doing on the defense side of football. He's going to turn Derek Stingley into a star. And then you also have Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson is pretty solid. Yeah, I think that he's 30 years old going into this year, or he'll end up turning 30. But Steven Nelson is at least able to give you solid cornerback play. Like, with Steven Nelson starting, you're never going to have to worry about, getting torched on that side of the field. Like, he's going to be a solid corner. Now, he's not going to give you elite cornerback play, but he's going to give you solid cornerback play where that cornerback 2 position is not going to be a liability. And you look at this defense, they were not good against the run last year. I think they gave up like the 8th or 6th most rushing yards in NFL history. Their run defense was absolutely terrible, man. Like, it was like a buffet every time you had the opportunity to play the Houston Texans. When you saw that defense, you knew all you had to do was run the football, and they weren't going to be able to stop you. So what did they do to improve that? They signed Sheldon Rankins in free agency. You also re-signed Malik Collins. Sheldon Rankins is really good against the run. Same thing with Malik Collins. As a matter of fact, when Malik Collins was on the field, the Houston Texans run defense was better versus how it performed when Malik Collins was on the sideline. And then you have Jonathan Grenard. Now, Jonathan Grenard, he dealt with some injuries last season, and plus he just wasn't that good when he was on the field. But the year prior, he had 8 sacks. So hopefully you can get Jonathan Grenard bouncing back and playing at the level that he was the season prior to last year. And then you also traded up for Will Anderson, who was regarded as the best pass rusher in this draft class, arguably the best defensive prospect coming out of this draft outside of Jalen Carter. So there are high expectations for Will Anderson. And when you look at some of these pass rushers who have been drafted high over the last couple of drafts, your Nick Bosa's, Joey Bosa's, your Michael Parsons and whatnot, if you draft a pass rusher in the top 15 that is considered to be an instant impact kind of player, most of those guys end up being really good early on. You look at how Aiden Hutchinson played last year. So if Will Anderson is that good as what a lot of people were saying when he was coming out of Alabama, he should be a guy who could give you 8 to 9 sacks right away, which would be really good. And at linebacker, you signed Denzel Perryman and Corey Littleton. Those guys are also going to help improve your run defense. Corey Littleton had a pretty good stretch when he was with the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I don't know what the hell happened ever since he left LA, but he hasn't really been the same. But last year, he was pretty good. So DeMeco Ryans brings him in. And then you have Denzel Perryman, who's been playing the best football of his career over the last 2 years. Last season, not 2022, but 2021, he was a Pro Bowler, and he's one of the better linebackers in the league when it comes to defending against the run. And you also are going to get that out of Corey Littleton. Now, you got Henry To'oTo'o, who I think is going to be more of a special teams guy. I think he's going to be more of a backup this year. So I'm not really expecting too much out of him. I think Denzel Perryman and Corey Littleton are going to be their 2 best linebackers. And then you got Christian Harris, who made some pretty flashy plays during his rookie season. DeMeco Ryans played linebacker at a really high level during his playing days in the NFL. So I think he's going to get the most out of that position. You saw how good the 49ers linebackers were under DeMeco Ryans. They had the best linebacking group in the NFL when he was their defensive coordinator. And then you look at the secondary, like I said earlier, like this secondary is going to be pretty good. Like, I know the Houston Texans on paper, it doesn't look like they're going to have a great defense. You look at their defense on paper and you look at it and you nod your head. You say, yeah, like, it could be okay. But when you look at DeMeco Ryans' impact and how this defense is going to respond under him, I think this is going to be a top 10 defense, and it's going to be one of those defenses that are going to be good, not because of the young players that they have, but also because they're going to be very well coached. So I think the Houston Texans are going to have a top 10 defense this year. And I can understand if you can kind of say, I don't really know about that. Like, I get your reason to be questionable of if the defense for Houston is going to be that good this year, even if you're a Texans fan. But I just think that DeMeco Ryans is going to have such a big impact. I think he's a really good defensive mind. And with the young players that he's going to be getting, I think that this defense is going to be good enough to be in the top 10. Like, you're going to have Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley, who should both play at Pro Bowl caliber levels at worst under DeMeco Ryans. And you got Jimmy Ward. So you're going to have a really good back end when you look at that secondary. You're going to have two really good corners. Well, Steven Nelson's going to be solid and Derek Stingley should be elite. So I think that the Texans defense is being a little bit underlooked going into this year. It's like, I think people know that the Texans defense is going to be good, but I don't think they're expecting it to be great by how I'm expecting it to be great. But you guys give me your comments and thoughts down below. What do the Pittsburgh Steelers need to go right? And what players do they need to step up this year to have success for the upcoming 2023 NFL season? Now, this is a new series that I'm starting to begin on the podcast. Keys to the season. What does every team need to do to be successful this year? And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, first of all, we got to answer the question, what would be considered a successful season for the Steelers this year? So I think a successful season for the Pittsburgh Steelers would be making it to the wild card round and having a competitive loss in the wild card. Now, some people may say divisional round, but I think wild card round would be a pretty good season for Pittsburgh, considering the fact that they have a pretty young roster. When you look at Kenny Pickett still being pretty young in his career going into year 2, you look at the fact that the Steelers have quietly overhauled their roster and rebuilt it. They had one of the oldest teams in the NFL a couple of years ago, especially when you looked at their offensive line. Now you look at their offensive line, you got a lot of young talent on that unit. And then you look at the defense also has gotten pretty young. Outside of Cam Hayward, like, this is a defense that has a lot of players that are pretty much in their primes right now. So for the Steelers, my biggest keys to them being successful this year, first of all, starts and ends with Kenny Pickett going into year 2. Kenny Pickett was not as bad as what a lot of people make him out to be. Like, a lot of people look at the numbers and they look at the touchdown to interception ratio, which looks really ugly, but you can tell the people who use that argument, the whole stats argument against Kenny Pickett not having a good rookie season, obviously didn't watch the games, because after his first month starting, he had one of the better touchdown to interception ratios in the NFL. And plus, the Pittsburgh Steelers were in the playoff conversation when he was healthy. Like, you got to remember, when he got injured and he wasn't able to play against the Carolina Panthers and Mitch Trubisky was playing, like, the Steelers were moving the ball. It's just that Mitch Trubisky was turning the football over in the red zone. So if Kenny Pickett would have played those games, the Steelers would have been a playoff team. And y'all can fight me on that, man. Like, I don't care. And then plus, you look at the fact that he took really good care of the football. Like, the mistakes that he made early in his first 4 games, he didn't make those similar mistakes during the second half of the season, especially when he came back healthy. And plus, he was really big in game-winning drives. When it came to moments when Kenny Pickett had to just find a way to put the Steelers in position to win, he came through. So I don't really care about how he starts the game. All I care about is, are you a quarterback who can rise to the occasion in big moments? And that's something that Kenny Pickett did very often last season during his rookie season that not a lot of people talk about, because most people just judge Kenny Pickett's rookie season based off his stats. So for Pittsburgh, you need him to take a giant leap this season. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Like, Kenny Pickett cannot struggle. You need Kenny Pickett to at least be a top half of the league QB this year when it comes from a performance perspective. You're not going to win this division having below average to average QB play. Like, I'm sorry, I know you Steelers fans are going to get upset with that, but there are way too many talented teams in this division that have great QBs. When Lamar Jackson is healthy, the Ravens are normally in the conversation for having the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and he won 70% of his games as a starter. And you already know how good the Cincinnati Bengals are with Joe Burrow at QB. and the Cleveland Browns have Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson wakes up and he snaps back to the quarterback that he was when he was playing for the Houston Texans before he got traded, if the Steelers don't get at least top half QB production out of Kenny Pickett this year, this team is not going to make it to the playoffs. And this is coming from a Pittsburgh fan. And I'm not saying that Kenny Pickett is incapable of being able to play at that level. But what I am saying is this: if he doesn't play at the top half level this year, it's going to be a struggle for the Steelers to make it to the playoffs, because you're going to be facing teams that have some of the top QBs in the game. And they also have some of the best rosters in the game. So you need Kenny Pickett to take a giant leap in development. You don't need him to be an elite QB. You don't need him to be a top 10 QB for you to make it to the postseason. But you at least need him to be ranked around the top 15 QBs in the league this season, which I think will be massive improvement for Kenny Pickett. And plus, most people aren't expecting Kenny Pickett to be all that great anyway. Like, most people think he's going to be around that throughout his NFL career. He may have a couple of seasons that may surprise people, but most people expect Kenny Pickett to be a top 15 QB that you can win with as long as he has the pieces around him. And the Steelers did a good job at doing that and improving the offensive line and trading for Allen Robinson. So he has a good group of receivers around him. And then he has a better offensive line than what he had last season. They're calling this offensive line the picket fence. Now, the most important player on the offensive line who is going to have another big impact on how the Pittsburgh Steelers season goes this year is rookie left tackle Broderick Jones, who they drafted in the first round out of Georgia. Now, I was really happy when the Steelers drafted him in the first round. This dude is a massive human being. He's an incredible athlete, and there's no way he can be any worse than Dan Moore. Like, Dan Moore was an undrafted player, and you know, Pittsburgh is one of those organizations that they love to give people opportunities, but Dan Moore should not have been the starting left tackle for Pittsburgh as long as what he was. And the left tackle position is one of the most valuable in the NFL. If you don't have a good left tackle, that can be the difference between you winning and losing 3 to 4 additional games. So when you have a good left tackle, some of the best pass rushers in the NFL, such as your Myles Garrett's of the world, end up having a difficult opportunity when you have a franchise left tackle. Pittsburgh needs Broderick Jones to be solid out the gate. Now, they don't need him to be great. They don't need this dude to look like he's an elite left tackle, even though you would hope for that to happen, and that's what you kind of expect for him to happen later on in his career. But right now, I just think you need him to be solid, which would be steps better from what you've gotten from the left tackle position over the last couple of years. You're already good at your other positions. At guard, center is really good. I think Chixo Okorafor is okay. All right, I think you could do a lot better than him, but I do think he's a pretty serviceable right tackle. And then the last person on the offense that's going to have a big impact on how successful the Steelers season is Matt Canada. You need Matt Canada's play calling to improve on third down and inside the red zone. Like, this dude's red zone play calling is not good. And I know I'm not a play caller, so I don't really know everything that goes into calling plays and whatnot, but I do know that some of those plays that Matt Canada be trying to run have zero chance for success. And then you look at how he calls plays on third down. Like, I remember there was one game when this dude called a halfback pitch. Like, what are you doing calling a halfback pitch, man? You know we don't have the offensive line to be running a halfback pitch on 3rd and 1. If you just don't give the ball to Najee Harris up the middle and let him run. Some of Matt Canada's play callings were really head-scratching, and that's me keeping it PG. And then he also needs to dial up some more deep bombs for George Pickens, man. Like, I don't get why the Steelers didn't take more deep shots down the field. The George Pickens, man, George Pickens needs to be heavily involved in the offense this year. Like, George Pickens is one of those receivers that you can force feed the ball due to his skill set. He's one of those receivers that he doesn't need to get open from running great routes and all that. He's one of those receivers that you see downfield, and if he has one-on-one coverage with no safety help over the top, you throw that thing, and you don't care what the play ends up resulting in, because the majority of the times he's going to win those situations. So if you're Matt Canada, you need to make sure that George Pickens gets over 100 targets this year. Matt Canada needs to do a better job at utilizing his personnel, because he didn't really do a good job at it last season. And I know I'm not one to be able to question being the offensive coordinator and the play calling because I never call plays outside of playing Madden. But I do know one thing, that George Pickens needed way more opportunities to catch those 50-50 balls than what he was given last year. And then you got Allen Robinson also, and you got Deontay Johnson, who can do a lot of the dirty work for you underneath, being a really fantastic route runner and being great after the catch. So there's a lot of weapons in the passing game at receiver for Kenny Pickett. You also have Pat Freiermuth. So for Matt Canada, there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be ranked in the top half of the NFL this season. He's going to be really big on determining how successful this offense is going to be, because if you don't have a good offensive coordinator, then you're going to over rely on your quarterback to be able to turn bad plays into good plays and good plays into great plays, versus when you have a great offensive coordinator, he makes good plays look like fantastic plays, and plus you couple that with a good QB, and it ends up resulting in you having one of the best offenses in the NFL. So when you look at Patrick Mahomes, like, yeah, he has Andy Reid calling the plays, but Patrick Mahomes makes Andy Reid look better as a play caller because he can turn the average plays into great plays and the good plays into epic plays. And for Kenny Pickett, just not having a good offensive coordinator could kind of hold him back this year. So for Matt Canada, his play calling needs to step up if this offense is going to improve this season. And then on the defense side of the football, you know how good Pittsburgh is up front. You have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Your secondary is probably going to be what makes or breaks this defense. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers are capable of being able to make it to the playoffs, you need Joey Porter to be really good out the gate this year. Now, he needs to be at least one of the best rookie cornerbacks in the NFL. He needs to be a top 3 rookie cornerback this year. It doesn't matter if he's the best one, the second, or third one. He just needs to be a top 3 cornerback, because the cornerback position for Pittsburgh, it hasn't been bad, but it's just been okay. And you can tell, like, when the Pittsburgh Steelers got to go against some of the better QBs in the NFL, that secondary gets torn up every single time. So you need Joey Porter to be a really good cornerback right out the gate. As a matter of fact, you hope that he kind of ends up being an elite QB, playing like how Sauce Gardner did last season. Now, although that's, having some overly optimistic expectations, but you at least hope that he can have a good rookie season. Maybe not on the caliber of Sauce Gardner, but if he can be a good cornerback, you would like that, because that position hasn't really been a strength or a weakness. It's just been okay. And when you play good QBs and you got okay cornerback play, it doesn't really end up looking pretty too often. So Joey Porter, I think he needs to be really good, really fast. And then you need good linebacker play. Linebacker play has been the biggest weakness of the Steelers defense for the last 2 years, man. So you bring in Miles Jack. You thought that Miles Jack was going to be able to solve your problem at linebacker, and he wasn't really all that good. Although I don't think he was terrible, but I guess the Steelers are just looking for more from that position. So you signed Landon Roberts, who's really good. You also brought in Cole Holcomb, who a lot of Commanders fans were really disappointed to lose in free agency. So as long as Cole Holcomb can stay healthy, because he does have a little bit of an issue of being able to stay on the field, the Steelers are going to have some really good linebacker play. And overall, with how good this pass rush is going to be, with the pass rushing duo of TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward, you're going to be really good up front. And if your linebacker play can be good, your run defense is going to return to what it used to be, because the Steelers normally used to have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but things have kind of started to go a little bit left with the issues that they've had at the linebacker position. So these are my Pittsburgh Steelers keys to a successful season in 2023. Let me know how you guys feel about this down in the comment section down below. Let me know what your keys are for a successful season for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. You can find the links to those down in the description down below. You just got to scroll down a little bit, or you can go to either of those platforms, type in the JT Sports Podcast, and it will pop up. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.